Welcome everyone to today's revision, and I shall help you to review the recent CA exams in March 2026 for L4M1 and L4M8. The exam was pretty recent, and I think that it will be helpful for you to prepare for May, July, or even for the students participated in um, March, then it would be helpful that you can review whether you are to benchmark your performance. Okay, so before I start, I can see there's a question from Ahmokham. He asked whether we can check spell and make correction in the exam and whether we should make bullet points. Oh, okay, thank you. Masud. Whether we should make bullet points both the exam. Okay, so for the first question about proofing, right? The exam software, TestRich doesn't support proofing because it's kind of like they design the software for general exam, including English exam, including the language exam. If they include spoofing there, then the language exam participants may apply that may count to be a cheat. So they don't include any spoofing in their software. And you need to manually proofreading yourself. There's no way to check spell automatically, right? So that is my recommendation. You must proofread your own answer. So spare time for that. It's only kind of like 1 or 2 minutes after each answer. If you have good vocabulary, then you can identify the errors within seconds. So practice practice makes perfect. Second, should we make bullet points and highlight text during them? It depends. For shorter answer or for the essay, that you need more structured approach, then bullet point is a great way. But mostly, you should write your answer in paragraphs with your main opinions, your explanation, and examples. And for the highlight, yes, of course you can do that. It may highlight the key points, and it may make the job for assessor easier. So highlighting could be implemented, and it isn't anything that may apply lower your score. Okay, I put my micro closer. Thank you for reminding me, Imad. Please wait, I have a phone call. Okay, so that a few things before I start. And here, I just want to make sure that you need to proofread manually. The software doesn't support automatically proofing. Okay, so spare the time to do that. Now, let's look at the recent questions that came in L4M1 and L4M8 in March 2026. Now, here is a list. For L4M1, we have 4 questions. First, it was a scenario about the fire rise and just very regular question about the added value of the fire rise. Feel free to correct me if I receive the right information. You can put your information, your experience in the exam in the chat. I may correct that as well. I may customize your answer based on your suggestion. Second, the second question now, we have a question from compliance about compliance, that is part 2.4 in study guide. And the specific question, also we have a scenario, and the specific question is about added value of compliance to process. The third question about ERP and the use of ERP in procurement. So we don't talk about ERP in general, but the ERP functions that could be useful in procurement. And finally, we have pretty new question about the differences between public and private sector. So as the information I have, then they don't ask about public versus private procurement, but generally just public versus private sector. However, we should customize our answer in the way explain these differences from procurement perspective. For L4M8, now we can see that we have a new question number one. Normally, question number one may ask about the procurement cycle and different aspects of procurement cycle. Now we have a little somewhat different question, but it may link to L4M1 as well. So the first question here is structured procurement process, the benefits and the rest. You can take what you know from L4M1 to apply in question number one of L4M8 here. Question number one of L4M8 has very close connection to question number two of L4M1 here. All right, so they are interconnected. Question number two about financial metrics. Again, we may see a few ratios and the implication if supplier has low financial rating. Okay, so I think that the major point here is about implication of selecting suppliers with poor financial rating. The third question, very predictable about whole asset management and whole cost. But here, they put it in slightly different manner. Instead of asking about a single asset, they asked about kind of like the a range of assets, and kind of like the company is scenario here buys a lot of cars, so we need to analyze the whole cost for the whole batch of goods, not just a single asset. And finally, we have a question also with scenario about how to secure suppliers ESG compliance or adherence. So it's kind of like about supply management, about contract management, but apply with ESG and other sustainable development perspective. Now, let's go into the details. First, with question number one of L4M1 about the fire rise. So we already know fire rise, and we already know about the added value. So we have right quality, right quantity, right time, right place, and the right price. In the question, we have a scenario, and it's, as I know from my student, then that scenario is pretty long. And for many students, then they were not able to connect between the scenario and the theories about fire rise. So I know that I also attended civic exams, and from my experience, I know that the question, the scenario could be very long, and not every information could be used for your answer. However, then we should still customize our answer by taking the details from scenario. So focus on your answer first. Just writing out like about the fire rise, and then through the fire rise, you can find some common points between your answer and scenario. The scenario may include a lot of background or introductory information, like about the background of that company, about the background of the team and of that manager, and then they may list a few problems, etc. So your work here is just focus on your answer first, write about right quality, and then try to filter out the details from scenario, whether we have any part about quality from scenario and apply it here. Okay, so just focus on your answer first, and then filter out the helpful information from from the scenario. That is the way you can work. And also having linkage to scenario increases your score as well. So with the far right, you know that the added value here are just the benefit of each right. And for each of the right, you can say about the costs that the right may avoid. Like for right quality, we can avoid redo rework and related costs. And we can list the benefits of achieving that right, because something like for right quality, then we can promote or we can ensure a higher level of customer satisfaction. Similarly, with the right quantity, then if we purchase the right quantity, we can avoid holding costs and the cost of stock out. That is also an added value. And finally, for each right, you should also say how we can achieve the right from procurement activities. For right quality, we can achieve that from better collaboration with the stakeholders, from standardization, value analysis, value engineering, from using software like e-catalog, and so on. For right quantity, then we can do that from also from talking with stakeholders and manage the demand closely, from inventory control, from applying some technologies like barcode RFID, and applying the advanced technique like judging time or doing our forecast better. That is about right quality and right quantity. And when we're moving on with the right price, right time, right place, you should have the similar approach for the right price. The added value here is that we getting the goods with or the service with the suitable price, not overflated, avoiding the overpriced option. So to do this, then we need to challenge the specification, ensuring that it has all sufficient feature and not extra, but not under as well. And we should consider about how like costs, we should consider about comparative tendering. For the right time and right place, we get the product or service at the right time, at the right place, to the right place, at the right point in time. And doing that, we may avoid unnecessary costs, like we may keep the satisfaction, we may avoid the cost like delivery and keep the delivery cost minimal. So to do that, we need to have better communication system with the supplier. And we need to monitor their performance through contract management, KPI, SOA, and other methods. Okay, so for the fried rice, just focus on the basic. Just write about the fried rice first, and then try to filter out the details from the scenario. That is the way you can ace this question. Normally, as I can read from the principal marker report, most students still perform pretty well on this. And the confusion you have during the exam is just your feeling. Sometimes you may like outperform what you expect. So just be confident. And remember that just put your idea down, no matter how hard it is, and then everything will follow. Now, let's move on with the second question. About the added value of compliance. Here, we also have a scenario, and I can say that my student also has the same problem with the previous one. So the scenario could be long, and the question may feel like irrelevant, but it is not the point. You just need to write down your idea and find the common points between your answer, between your essay and the scenario. That's all. So about the added value of compliance, you can take the following points. And of these points also the benefits of having structured procurement process. They are pretty the same. They are pretty the same. So when we complement to a right process, then we may have the consistency. We may improve the collaboration between procurement and other stakeholders. We may support the training of employees. They can learn from doing with the compliance. We can secure the ESG objectives. We can support the audit and complaint later. And we can prevent bribery, corruption, and fraud. That's kind of thing. So with this one, when we have a scenario, even if the scenario doesn't suggest that directly, but we can read between the line. For example, about support training. Maybe in scenario, they don't have any new employee, but they may have some kind of like underperforming employee or underperforming procurement officer. Then we can say that by establish a standard process and comply to that. Then we can support and promote at least the performance to an acceptable level. Okay, so that is support training. With the question like about added value, you can brainstorm your own idea, and here it just suggested, and I think that you may have better idea than mine. Okay, so this is the question number 2. Maybe not too long, but it also depends on the specific scenario you have. So just kind of like generate your idea first, and then find the points from scenario, and you can still ask this question. It's not very difficult. Now we move on with the third question, ERP. So far as I know, also my experience with my own student, not every organization invests in the software system, and ERP is pretty expensive. Therefore, not every SIP student has experience with ERP, and they may not know the features as well as the interface of ERP in procurement. However, you can overcome this kind of shortcoming, overcome this kind of disadvantage by searching on YouTube. You can you can watch video about ERP, how they operate the software from procurement perspective, and so on. Just search like ERP in procurement on YouTube, and you can see a few videos advertising the software, and they may introduce the key function, and you can use that as example in your exam, in your answer. So from my own experience, then ERP in procurement may offer a few functions. Actually, this kind of system includes different electronic system, as you can see from chapter 2, like e-requisition, e-catalog, e-ordering, e-sourcing, except e-payment. All right. So we have a few features like we have the requisition screen, where the end user may write the requisition and get approval. We may have a tendering or e-tendering platform, where it allows the supplier to log in and submit the bid as per instruction. And more advanced ERP system may offer contract management. You can create the contract, you can input the data performance into the software, and then at the end of month, or at the end of quarter, or at the end of the year, we can summarize, visualize the report. We may have some advanced system may have supply chain management module as well. It may help you to visualize the supply chain. We have supply chain mapping and supply chain risk management. And most ERP software offer basic data analysis, or you can export the data and analyze yourself using other software like Excel or Power BI. So at least from ERP, we can summarize our spend and sort the spend based on suppliers or based on the categories. And similarly, with supplier performance, we can visualize, we can look at the past performance and benchmark against the current performance or benchmark between different suppliers. So these functions could be found in ERP. And if you have real world example with ERP, that would be better. You can take example from SAP Ariba or Oracle. Okay, I see a few chat. I see a few texts from the chat. Right. Yeah, sorry, I only see this. Jellica on question number 2, she used sustainability, consistency, training staff, accountability, ethical. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So still pretty good question, good answer. Now, let's move on. Question number 4. I think it is the most challenging part of this L4M1 exam. So question number 4 is about differences between public and private sector. Again, it is not just about procurement. It is a general comparison. However, we should customize our answer based on these differences. And when we talk about the difference or the similarity, we should have a set of comparators. Here, I list a few comparators. And actually, you can find these comparators from chapter 1 of L4M8 as well. So L4M1 and L4M8 should come together. You should learn them together. They are interconnected. The comparators I use in this question are the following. First, about the ownership. Who owns that sector? Who are the owners in each sector? Second, about the sources of funding. How these organizations get their money. Third, about accountability. How each organization, what is the accountability of each sector? And then the objective, this is very well mentioned from study guide. And finally, some features of procurement activities. Here, you can see that I established a table. Okay, pretty clear. But you should not do the table. You should not use a table in your answer. You should write it in a clear paragraph. Okay, I just suggest a few key things here so that you can generate your answer. But you should not use table in your answer sheet. Okay, this is just a suggestion. So for public and private sector, I have the following comparison. First, ownership. Public sector organizations are publicly owned by the government, but in fact, by theory, then all government agencies are created to serve the people. So, and they belong to the public. They are public owned. No one truly owns these agencies, but it belongs to the people, at least by theory. But for private sector, then each organization is privately owned by either some individuals or some legal entities, but they are owned they can be owned by any person. Second, on the sources of funding. So public sector get their fund mostly from taxes. They raise taxes, they raise revenue and reinvest the revenue into activities that may support the public or that may offer some key services. But in the modern world, most state or most government can also borrow money. They borrow money from issuing Supplier bonds. So they don't borrow money from the bank, but they borrow money from selling the bonds on open market. But still, Mostly they get the funding from the tax. And for developing countries, they can get the support of financial loans from financial institutions like World Bank or African Development Bank or Asia Development Bank. They get the money from Development Bank. So their channel funding is pretty different from private sector. For private sector, they have more freedom regarding rising finance. They can sell their shares. They can issuing bonds, but of course, share and bonds are heavily regulated. They can get the money from the bank through commercial loans from any commercial bank within the country or from overseas, and they can sell off their assets and lease back and get a lease as a way of finance. So Forrester has pretty flexible way to raise finance. And regarding accountability, public sector organization has the accountability they have accountability towards the citizen, towards the public. They need to explain what they do to the public, and they need to publish their reports, their finance, their activities on the website, on any medium that the public may access. So mostly, if you read newspaper, then you can see a lot of news about about government, about different government agencies in general. But for private sector, they hold accountability towards their own owner or the shareholders. We have an exception of public company or public limited company. Since they are public companies, so they offer shares to individual investors. So there are a lot of investors out there. So they also publish their own account, their own report. Therefore, in a way, we can say that their accountability is toward the public, but mostly if they perform if they perform badly, then the shareholders will hold them accountable, will hold them responsible, and most of the public don't care about private sector. But public sector is another problem. They have another problem. The public, the citizens in general within the country may has very huge interest in what the government is doing. So they hold mostly accountability toward their own citizen toward the public in general. Next, about objective, you can check this from the study guide. They list the objectives of public, private, and third sector very clearly. For public sector, the objective here include law and order, keeping the society stable. It include providing necessary services like education, healthcare, and research, and it supports economic development of the country. For private sector, they seek profitability, they seek market share, they want to improve the shareholder value, and for certain companies, they may have ESG objectives. Finally, I think this is the most important about key features of procurement. So in public sector, they normally have the regulations in procurement, and they often prescribe competitive tendering to most contract opportunity. And therefore, we don't see many long-term contract and not many long-term relationship with the suppliers. They very different from private sector. So with public sector, the procurement activity here, the procurement activities are optimized for compliance. They prioritize compliance, not efficiency. But in private sector, procurement activity are less regulated, and the organizations prioritize efficiency, and they can create or design their own process as long as it is efficient. And private sector organization has a freedom contract with any supplier they want, and any supplier or any collaboration with the supplier they want. So this is the key difference. This is the key difference that lead to different reaction and design for public and private sector. For public sector, the procurement professional prioritize compliance, and they need to comply with the regulations as well as with the accountability. With private sector, they tend to focus on the efficiency. The process can be customized, and they have the freedom to form a working relationship, form the strategic relationship with the suppliers. So that is the question number 4 of L4M1. Now, let's move on L4M8. The 4th question. First, we have the structured procurement process, and of course, we focus on the advantages or the benefit and the risk of that process. Before that, you should define what does it mean by structured procurement process. So, structured procurement process is a well-defined process with detailed steps and guidelines to provide the instruction in procurement and supply function. Simple as that. Structured process. I think that I should break this word down. Structured process means the process is stable, it is well structured, it has the guideline for every step, and everyone knows what to do next. And when it is applied to procurement, then we have structured procurement process. Well-defined process with detailed step, guideline, provide instruction in procurement. That's all. So for the benefits or the advantages, we still have the same ideas as the compliance. So it provides the consistency in supply engagement. It support collaboration between supplier, between procurement and other stakeholders. It provide or support the training for new employees and junior procurement. It may help the organization to achieve ESG objectives, and it may support audit and compliance as well. For the risk, since this is a general problems for any structured process. So when we have too detailed, too specific, and too rigid process, then it may increase the red tapes and bureaucracy. Everything may slow down just to ensure compliance. So we may waste the opportunity or innovation. We may strain the relationship between procurement and other stakeholders, and also with the suppliers as well. We may have some problems in innovate or move forward, and it may create a culture of change resistant, a culture of staying stable and doesn't change for a long time. L4M8 often have scenario, and from what I know from my students, then all of these 4 questions for L4M8 has a scenario. But it doesn't matter as long as you can provide the idea. You can connect these ideas with scenario. Okay, you can filter out, you can cherry picking, you can cherry pick some details from the scenario and put it here. Now, for the second question, we also have a scenario, and I believe that there are some numbers that you need to crunch on for this question. about financial metrics. So for financial metrics, the study guide and in my experience, SIP often asks about the following ratios. They may list that in the question. They often list that in the question. So we have the current ratio, quick ratio, gearing ratio, gross profit margin, net profit margin. For financial analysis and for financial ratio analysis, you need to calculate these ratio based on the formula and then benchmark the result against a threshold, like for current ratio, that is 1. For gross profit margin, that is around 50%. For gearing ratio, that is 100%. And for net profit margin, compared to 0. So with these ratios, when we see the result, we can benchmark the result with the threshold, and then make our comments on how well supplier is doing. But I think for this question, we should focus on analysis about implication of low financial rating. So for supplier who is financially struggling, then they may have inconsistent quality because they don't have any money to reinvest in quality assurance. They may have inconsistent delivery because they don't have the working capital to reinvest or to continue their operation, and they may not deliver very consistently. Third, this may affect us directly. The supplier, when they struggle with cash, they may demand earlier payment. And that affects our cash flow. And in the long run, supplier who has no financial resources make no investment in research, development, or continuous improvement. So their performance may drag on, their poor performance may drag on for a long time without improvement. That is the reason we should avoid them, and we should select a supplier with more stable, more robust financial performance. For question number 3, we have whole assets measurement. And for this very specific question, it is about scenario of purchasing 200 cars. So just like the question about whole assets measurement, you need to analyze in different cost elements. Here, I divide into 5 elements. And second, you should customize the cost here based on scenario. So cars aren't so long-term assets. They don't perish after one use. They may be used in 5-10 years at least. And therefore, we may have costs associated with them. But when we have a bulk purchasing like this, then a few things may arise. First, moving 200 cars from supplier to the buyer could be tedious, and that requires a lot of logistics. Second, if the buyer is purchasing these cars from overseas, then we may incur significant logistic costs and duty taxes costs, transportation costs. Third, 200 cars cannot be managed. They cannot be managed manually. Instead, we should have a systematic approach to manage them. So when it comes to operations, we should account for the management software. We should account for we should account for the wages to the manager and to the operator as well. At least there should be someone who drive the car. And for the maintenance, it is also more complicated since we have a lot of assets here. And we should organize our maintenance like we should organize a separated or a dedicated maintenance team with dedicated facilities, and we should select like standardized car so that we can standardize the parts and also share the service. And furthermore, tourist cars may serve as a fleet of servicing vehicles for company. Therefore, we should plan the use of car accordingly. Um, because you know that when we have a lot of assets, then we need to spread the use. If we just use have like 5, 10 cars for a long time and then they break down, then we continue to use the rest, then that is not a very good way of using assets. Instead, we should have a plan regarding the assets and how to use them, how to plan the downtime, how to plan for the servicing, etc. Okay, so there are a few key differences of buying a lot of assets comparing to a single asset. So just as general, you need to focus on different costs. Okay, so with pre-acquisition, we may need to account for the cost for the research of the market, for supply vetting, for tendering, and for negotiation. This is a pretty big contract, so the negotiation could be long, and the contract terms could be quite. There could be a lot of things to debate with supplier, so the negotiation could be long as well. On acquisition, we have the logistic cost. Okay, getting tourist cars to your premise is not an easy task. If we import them, then we need to account for DT, taxes, and currency exchange. The purchase price by its own, testing and acceptance, financial costs, like we may need to borrow money to buy these cars, and also insurance for these cars as well. For operations, we need to account for the energy, consumables like the lubricants, like the gasolines, and other consumable parts. We should account for the parking. We should park tourist car somewhere, and that cost is quite significant as well. We should account for management software and the manager, the wages for manager and wages for operators. For maintenance, then we need to have a scheduled service, some scheduled servicing, the planning for the maintenance, buying the spare part, the facility for maintenance, and the downtime accounting as well. And at the end of life, this car could be resale or it must be disposed um, at permitted premise. Okay, so for this question, you should customize the answer based on your own experience. If you see tourist cars as kind of like some assets that need to be planned, then you can see through what could be the cost associating with a bulk purchase like this. I received a question from Suanilo. It actually depends on specific question. Normally, they just ask about the whole life cost. So we mentioned about the whole life cost. And the what you are mentioning here is the different stages of whole life assets management. But normally SIP doesn't ask about this. They just ask about the whole life cost. Okay. Now, the final question today about we we have a scenario, and the question is how to secure the supplier's ESG adherence or compliance. So scenario may highlight a few problems from the supplier performance, like they may do something dirty, they don't have sufficient safety, or they may waste the energy and so on. For those problems, you may have specific measures. But generally, because I don't have the specific scenario, so I suggest a general way to approach like this. First, with ESG adherence, then we must have some framework to do. So we can establish the KPIs and SOA in the contract. The KPI here may focus on ESG matters like about energy, about carbon emission, about water consumption, about the safety of the workers, about minimum wages, and about employment. So depending on your focus, you can design the different KPIs. Second, we need to ensure their adherence. We need to secure their compliance. So we need to have audit. Audit here means we check their compliance, whether they are doing as per the contract or they are doing something wrong. So we need to have the plan. We need to contract with the third-party auditors. And when we have the report, we should have a corrective action plan and discussion with supplier, like collaborative discussion and meeting. There are other ways, less labor intensive to secure adherence, like checking their accreditation or requiring them to have accreditation, like having the fair trade, SA 8000 or ISO 14001. Each of these certificates may indicate different area of performance. And regarding the adherence, then just checking them without providing support or guideline is not enough. As buyer, you can have the development program for the supplier. You can provide them with a training, you can provide them with a guideline and instruct them how to adhere to the ESG objectives. Finally, to receive the report about the wrongdoing, you can establish a hotline and encourage the whistleblowers from supplier to report. And based on these reports, we can organize audit. So here, they are the general practices that can be used to promote or secure the ESG adherence. I think that this question is also quite familiar to many students, and it is very well expected from L4M8. So that is the end of today's revision. We are still updating our practice questions with the most recent exam. So if you have any other concern and if you want to study with us, just contact us on WhatsApp with this number or contact us by email at evacuation@evacuation.edu.vn. I also upload the recording to our website at en.evacuation.edu.vn, and this slide will be uploaded as well. So stay tuned for our emails and communication. Next week, we may review the recent exam for L4M1 and L4M4. Thank you very much for your participation today and see you later. Wish you all the best with the SIP exam.